Hey everyone! Ever feel like your design to development handoff is just a giant game of telephone? Today, we're officially moving away from hard-coded hex values and embracing design tokens. Stick around to learn how to seamlessly bridge the gap between design and code. Let's get started.
Have you ever felt like our design to dev handoff is basically just a giant game of telephone? You know, the first person whispers a sentence, and by the time it reaches the end of the line, it is something completely different. A beautifully crafted UI gets approved in Figma, we toss it over the fence to the dev team, and what actually ships to production looks, well, a little off. The primary blue is somehow 3 different shades across 3 different screens, and checking the button padding literally requires a magnifying glass. Look, I know it's frustrating for everyone involved. So, to fix this, here's our roadmap for this explainer. 1. The design handoff disconnect. 2. Meet your design tokens. 3. The 3-tier token taxonomy. 4. Colors, spacing, and typography. 5. Bridging design and code. And finally, 6. Is it time to scale? All right, let's start with number 1, the design handoff disconnect, that massive gap between Figma and VS Code. The team over at Fig has this brilliant analogy for the situation. Picture 2 architects, right? They're designing the exact same building, but one architect is using inches and the other is measuring in centimeters. It'd be total chaos. And honestly, that's exactly what happens when designers and developers don't share a common language. Designers are over there living in Figma while developers are deep in VS Code. Without standardized components and measurements connecting the two, almost every new feature gets built from scratch. And the result? We end up with a totally fragmented user experience. Which brings us to part 2. Meet your design tokens, our new single source of truth. So what exactly is a design token? Simply put, it's a design decision that's stored as data. The term was actually coined by Gina Ann over at Salesforce way back in 2014. And the core idea here is absolutely crucial. We are separating what a design value means from where it's actually used. So instead of hard-coding a hex value, like say #3B82F6 into our CSS, we store that value just once as platform-agnostic data. Usually that's JSON or YAML. And then we just reference it by its name, everywhere. Brad Frost, the creator of Atomic Design, hit the nail on the head. He said, in the world of UI, design tokens are subatomic particles. They're literally the foundational ingredients of our apps. A token like color brand blue is a vital piece of our UI, but on its own, it's just an ingredient. It needs to be applied to an atom, like the background of a button, to actually come to life and do something useful. Now, I want to clear up a super common point of confusion right away, which is how tokens differ from standard CSS variables. While CSS variables are web-only and can be changed at runtime, design tokens are totally platform-agnostic. They're stored as JSON and transformed at build time. CSS custom properties are really just one output of design tokens. Look, if we were only ever building for the web, CSS variables might cut it. But because we're shipping on iOS, Android, and the web, we absolutely 100% need this platform-agnostic token layer. Moving on to part 3, the 3-tier token taxonomy, or how we organize all this for scale. The W3C specification organizes these tokens into 3 distinct layers, kind of like a giant puzzle. First up, primitive tokens. These are your raw global palette values. They define what colors even exist in our system, but they have 0 context. Second, we have semantic tokens. These take those primitive values and map them to a specific contextual purpose, like a primary brand color or an era state. And finally, layer 3, component tokens. These scope those values down to very specific UI elements, giving you that super fine-grained control, like standardizing the hover state across every single button in the app. The absolute game changer here is the difference between using a hard-coded value and a semantic token. Imagine we decide to do a rebrand. If we're relying on hard-coded hex values, our engineering team has to meticulously hunt down #3B82F6 in literally hundreds of files. It's a nightmare. But if we're using a semantic token, like color primary, we just jump into one central file and change its underlying value from blue to green. Boom. Every single component using color primary updates automatically, system-wide. And if you're sitting there thinking this sounds like a hypothetical problem, just look at Spotify. When they refreshed their signature brand green back in 2015, updating that one single color across all their different platforms took them months of manual work. Literally months. All because they skipped the semantic layer. If they had semantic tokens in place, that exact same global brand update would have propagated through their entire system in a matter of minutes. Okay, part 4, colors, spacing, and typography. Let's look at some concrete token examples. It helps to think of our product kind of like a recipe. The designers are the chefs, right? They're carefully selecting the ingredients, the colors, the typography, the specific spacing. The developers are the cooks in the kitchen, meticulously following that recipe to bring the dish to life. But if the recipe calls for 1 teaspoon of salt and the cook just kind of guesses and throws in a whole tablespoon, the final dish is completely ruined. Tokens are how we perfectly sync those ingredients so our cooks never ever have to guess.
But there's a catch, and it's mostly psychological: naming. Naming is almost always the #1 pain point when teams adopt tokens. The golden rule you have to remember is to describe purpose, not appearance. So you'd name a token color error, not color red. Why? Well, what happens if our brand guidelines change down the line and error states become orange? If the token is literally called color red, but it suddenly outputs orange, that's just confusing for everybody. Naming by purpose completely prevents this kind of design drift.
And this concept goes way beyond just color. We tokenize our spacing and our typography too. Think of these as the structural integrity of our whole design system. By defining our exact font sizes, line heights, paddings, and margins as tokens, we create shared baseline measurements. That means the spacing a designer sets in Figma directly translates to the utility classes our developers are already using in Tailwind CSS. The whole shebang aligns perfectly on the grid. Which leads us to part 5, bridging design and code. Let's talk about the actual technical workflow. So here is the exact 4-step transformation pipeline we use to make this happen. Step 1, we define the tokens in a central JSON file or by using Figma variables. Step 2, we transform those tokens using an open source tool like Amazon Style Dictionary. That automatically converts the JSON into the exact specific formats that iOS, Android, and web need. Step 3, we distribute those formatted tokens via Git or NPM packages. And step 4, we reference those tokens directly in our component code. You make one change at step 1 and it flows instantly and seamlessly all the way to step 4. To actually pull this off, we're establishing a really modern, robust tooling stack. We'll kick things off with Figma variables to manage our tokens natively on the design side. Then we use Style Dictionary to process them. From there, we'll lean on Storybook for live, real-time visual testing of our React components, which basically acts as a mirror so our developers never have to code blind. We tie all that styling together with Tailwind CSS, and we manage the entire thing through GitHub for strict version control. Basically, we're going to start treating our design decisions with the exact same rigor that we treat our software code. And finally, part 6, is it time to scale? Let's evaluate our product needs. Let's look at a standard industry decision framework for this. Now, you probably don't need tokens if you're just a solo designer hacking away on a single web-only MVP. But you absolutely do need them if you have multiple designers, if you ship on multiple platforms like web and mobile, if you ever plan to support dark mode or multi-theming, or if you consistently struggle with QA and handoff inconsistencies. And let's be real, as a growing startup, we hit every single one of those checkboxes. The upfront effort to build this architecture is tiny compared to the absolute mountain of UI maintenance debt we'll face if we don't. So I want to leave you all with this final thought. The next time you hand off a design, or the next time you receive one to build, ask yourself, will a developer instantly understand exactly how to implement this without needing a 30-minute sync meeting? If the answer is no, then our language is broken. It is time for us to adopt a token-first shared language, align our tools, and finally let our chefs and cooks work from the exact same recipe. Thank you all for joining this explainer. Now, let's go build something incredibly consistent.